Good morning and welcome to Lattes and Leaders with Dr. Brad Johnson, best-selling author and accomplished public speaker specializing in education and educational leadership. I am your co-host, Jeremy Johnson, organizational psychology consultant specializing in career coaching, training, and development. Meet us here each week to discuss topics in education and leadership and meet with some of the top education talent and thought partners from across the globe. So grab your latte, sit back, and enjoy a relaxed conversation that will leave you informed and encouraged.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Lattes and Leaders with me, Dr. Brad Johnson, and we have a very special guest today. It is Miss Jeni Neatherlin. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. So I followed you on social media for a while, and you were so kind to check out one of my books. So I was thrilled by that and thankful for it and appreciative of that. So I definitely wanted to have you on the show too, to kind of just share a little bit about your experiences and your successes and your story to get you to where you are today.
Oh, well, thank you. And first off, it was a great book. And I think that everybody should check it out about being a more assertive teacher because we need that.
All right. So just as much as you want to share about your journey and your story, just feel free, because I know, it'll be an inspiration to others that are starting the path.
Yeah. So I grew up in Midland, Texas, and that's kind of like the home of Friday Night Lights. And I fell in love with education, and not just because that education was in our family, it was because I really just felt like it was a calling. And I immediately just loved school because of all of the structure that it provided for me. And I kind of grew up in a place. Midland is the haves and the have nots, and I was definitely a have not. And so that was just such a blessing to have education be the catalyst for my life to go beyond what was actually expected from essentially from our family. And so that was something that I just hold near and dear, of being an educator. Had a lot of fantastic educators in Midland ISD, and I so much so that I just wanted to make that my career, and found my way into coaching. I was a softball player and found my way into coaching and teaching, and I was an English teacher, and I've been able to move all around and just work. But I love teaching. It's such a passion, and that's just something that, no matter going into administration or not, it's just going to be something that I love doing, and I have the utmost respect. I always tell people, remember, you're the 4-year-old, 5-year-old, you're living their dream. And you at those little kindergarten graduations, they always say, I want to be a teacher, or I want to be a firefighter. They grow up with that service mindset, and so I'm so thankful for the teachers that never lose that.
Mm. Oh, I love that. Yeah. And I noticed on your social media, a lot of times you'll post stuff about sports and things. And I love that. And I could tell that you were influenced by that as well. Share a little bit about how that background kind of has influenced maybe even your leadership mindset.
Well, it's all about teamwork, right? And so you know, my high school coach, her name is Ricky Woodard, and she's actually the head softball coach at Texas State University. She made it all the way up and has been there for quite a while, and is one of the winningest coaches in college softball history. And so she was my high school coach, and she inspired me and motivated me and really ultimately made me want to be a coach. At the end of the day, I believe that athletics is the extracurricular piece is something in Texas we very much value that, and we put resources to that as well. And it's just something I think keeps kids invested, involved, and helps us academically turn things around on our campuses because of how much people care about it. And so, with that being said, they can go hand in hand. I personally have found that that was something that, when she got me, so she poured so much into me. And she gave me an award called the Fighting Bulldog Award when I was in high school, But at the ceremony, she said it was because I picked up trash in the dugouts after. But I thought, well, man, of all the leadership things that I did, I was really good at picking up trash, right? But it's not about just picking up trash. It's about doing the little things and being a good teammate and take leaving things better than you found it. And so all of that has translated and been brought to life in everything that I do in my classrooms, on the field, when I was coaching, and into building teamwork amongst staff and teams as a principal and as a superintendent. And we've been able to be successful based off of that teamwork. And we really, really work well together. And that's not an easy task to build teams, but we've been able to accomplish that.
I love that. And I actually love that about picking up the trash. John Wooden, won more basketball championships than any other coach. And they said during the week, if you found him, it would often be in the gym sweeping the floor before practice because he didn't want anything on his floor. He wanted it, ready for them to use. And I often say that with administrators, when people pull up to your campus, what do they see? Because
Mhm.
that visual tells you a lot about, how specific they are to details and things like that. So that's actually a great illustration. So I love
Thanks.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Piggybacking off of that, and she may be the one too, but is there a teacher or two that influenced you, maybe early on or along the way that really impacted you?
Well, I will say, yeah, absolutely. Coach Woodard was one of them. I go back. I had a lot of great teachers, and so I'm very blessed. Actually, one of the people that who inspired me and helped me was our school nurse, Dr. Vanita Brown. I mean, Miss Vanita Brown. She was just so incredible, and she was so nurturing. But again, like I had so many teachers that poured into me. But you know who inspires me so much, Dr. Johnson, is the teachers that I get to see in my role now. And
Mm.
I get to watch them continuously evolve and work. And I get such an up close and personal look at like both how they live their life and how they put so much into their work and love on students. And so I get inspired now by those teachers that are just pushing the envelope daily when they're constantly being attacked from public education standpoint. And so I mean, we have so many, and every place that I go, like there's just a handful of them that just inspire me and make me want to get up and do this job every single day because I want to fight for them.
Oh, I love that. And you brought a perspective that I hadn't really thought about. We remember the grade school teachers, and like I always share my seventh grade life science teacher made a big impact on me, and I actually became a life science teacher. But you look at it through a different lens as an adult, and even as in the leadership role, looking back on that, like you said now, and reflecting, and you gain a whole level of perspective and even respect for it, even greater now, probably. So that I like that. I don't think anyone shared that before. So, and that's a good way to view it. And that also maybe is a good reminder to leaders out there to spend time in the classrooms and see what the teachers are doing and seeing the greatness that they do. But you're right, it is a tough time right now. And I know in Texas, y'all are having a huge struggle with financing and the bills for certain schools. And we won't get into all that, but
Yeah.
it's a shame that we use education as a political divide instead of understanding that if we pour into every child and help them be their best, we would have so much more success in every area in our country. And I think that's true globally. So thank you for sharing that. So, when we think about leadership, what do you think are a couple of the traits that you possess that have helped you be so successful to rise to the level that you have in leadership?
Well, I think that grit and determination, those are something that just you don't quit, won't stop, that type of mentality that helps us persevere and on my teams and that lets us continue the work because no matter how hard it gets, we feel very purpose driven, and so just that tenacity and courage to just keep pushing forward, and knowing that you're going to make mistakes in the classroom. Teachers are going to make mistakes, leaders are going to make mistakes, people are going to make mistakes. That's a given. But having the mindset that like we can overcome those and we can work through those, and we can make continue to just make change, and for the good, and that's showing that kids, like, you don't have to be perfect to be better, and we want our people to continuously strive to be better, the best versions of themselves for the school, their families, their communities, and those are the types of things that we're really working towards. And so, I, at the end of the day, if I do anything for people, I just want them to say that they can do hard things, and we can keep going, and we can move forward, and that when you're a good, you really are a reflective decision maker that makes decisions on the best interest of people, and in the interest of others that benefits the whole. You can do a lot of things in education that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like the part about, because in education it is almost like with the students, they're not allowed to fail. You got to pass this, we got to meet a certain standard and all. And the reality is that's life. And it's I mean, and I think about, even like with babies starting to walk, they fail 99% of the time, literally fall with their fail, but they get up and keep going. So somewhere along the way, we start to instill that failure is a bad thing, because I don't think that children really understand that, or that really is their mindset. Because, like I said, if the baby fell and, oh, well, walking's not for me, I'll
Yeah,
just crawl the rest of my life. That doesn't
absolutely.
happen.
Well, I mean, and
So
that failure is where learning begins. Simple as that. That's where the learning begins. And I promise you, if they fail a driver's test, they're going to keep trying, right? And always with our high schoolers, I would say, well, I mean, okay, are you going to go try to take that driver's test one time? No, no, you're going to keep pushing, and so that's got to translate into all things.
that's a good point. I think I read one time, and I think I posted something about it a long time ago, because we always, expect them to pass and do well on standardized tests. I think 50 or 60% of people actually failed their driving test the first time. But I love your point that they don't just say, "Okay, I'm never going to drive," and stop. They take it again a third time or whatever it takes. So
However many times it takes, they want that
ever,
freedom. Yeah.
yeah. So I love I love that mentality. That's so true. Now, on the flip side of that, what do you feel like, because you've been around and you're at a level now to see a lot of leaders and new leaders coming up? What do you see maybe as maybe not weaknesses, but areas that maybe are lacking, or skill sets that are lacking, or maybe that we don't really mentor with new leaders, that are create challenges for them in as a leader?
So for new leaders, okay, so this is I am so guilty of this, and this is something that an assistant superintendent of mine when I was a principal, he said, "Jenny, you need to make sure." He's like, "You know a lot of stuff in a lot of different areas, but do you know if your people know it?" And so I will always like defer to leaders and say, you may know a lot of things, but how do you make sure your people know what you know? And so that's, when we talk about delegation and doing those things with leaders, is that like how much training are they giving their people to understand what they know and where they got to that position? And so, I mean, even if it's like a data crunch, I was an English department chair, and I can crunch data and do all of the things instructional all day long, but I can't assume that people know what I know. So if I really want to, that, the PLC stuff, they talk about clarity precedes competency. You definitely have to dive in to make sure that they understand what you know and what your expectations are. And so those are the types of things that I think, for whatever level, whether it's in the classroom or at the leadership, for principals and assistant superintendents, how do we get our people to understand the things that we know really well that we just assume? So those are the biggest challenges I think that we face in our world.
with the assertive teacher and also with my latest one for finding leadership edge, I talk a lot about education being a high agreeableness profession. And so people that go into it, not all, but most tend to be high
Mhm.
agreeable, which means they're kind, they're empathetic, they're understanding. But being that type of person, a lot of times presents challenges too, that they don't know how to say no or set boundaries or even handle conflict. As a leader, how do you handle that? Maybe even with your, or thinking back, maybe not as a superintendent, but as a principal with your staff, how do you help them navigate those problems like being afraid of conflict and things like that?
Well, I mean, that's always a tricky part because people pleasers are going I mean, a lot of teachers are people pleasers and that's a beautiful side to them. But I think it's one of the things that I do is like I'm always feeling you can always come talk to me and you can tell me no, right? And
Mm,
giving them the authority to say and telling them that from the get-go you can tell me no and you can say this is my boundary and then I think modeling that too and showing like this is my boundary this is and I those are just consistent conversations that has to be developed through trust and then asking them questions. I think legitimately asking them good sincere questions and you bring up a lot of those questions in your book that you can as a leader that I can talk to them about and use those questions to find out like what they're really thinking and what they're really because some will never say it but you have to so then that's where as a leader we have to know that we have to go to them and meet them where they are with the questions that'll like allow them to be truly open about it and those are the things that I don't think that you're going to change that with necessarily all teachers aside from until they truly trust that people can like thrive and be successful in your world while main like still saying nah, I don't think so and and that's okay like it is really okay to say no that is and as a teacher I could do it that was just but that's my nature right I would just say we're not going to do that today. I think that we can do this, this, and this, and this. I think it's all in the approach. And I think giving them strategies for communication is
mm.
very helpful. And those are the toolboxes that you've been able to provide for a lot of teachers, and that's fantastic. But as a leader, just making sure that you're modeling that they can say no, that they are indeed there is that trust that is established there, and you can just roll from there.
Yeah, I really like the point you said about trust. I think that that underpins everything in those relationships between the leader and the staff and the whole staff, not just teachers, because maybe they are afraid to and it may be based on experiences. One of the things I tell leaders is, if you've got a teacher that's negative, when we talk about students, we always say there's an underlying reason for that behavior. Well, we a lot of times don't think about that with adults. We're just addressing whatever's in the moment instead of saying, hey, what is the underlying reason for that? And so, like you said, it's so important to build trust with them where they feel like they can share those types of things. Or, like you said, they won't. They'll just, keep it to themselves and never be honest. But then nothing ever really gets fixed that way. So,
Yeah.
I like that. And I think that's so important.
Well, I have a teacher that he actually had been teaching for 43 years, and he sent me a message the other day, and he was talking about how there's a disconnect between administrators and teachers right now post COVID, and he said that
Mm.
there's these. He said the lines of communication have just blurred, and I said, "Well, that's the problem is that those communication lines." I said because I wasn't raised with my daughter. She's raised in a time where there's technology at her hands and on social media well, I wasn't raised like that, but that doesn't mean that I can't relate to her and I can't connect with her. I just have to keep those lines of communication open with her to understand her world. And so I really think that that's a huge piece for us is to understand each other's world through that level of open communication and trust that we're going to take care of each other because I may not understand your day to day right now, but that doesn't mean that I can't listen and have an empathetic ear.
Right. Oh yeah. I love that part. I mean, we can all, it's like we all I remember talking to someone the other day and they said when you close the door and the lights are turned off, everybody's just a person again. And I'm like,
Mhm.
that's a healthy way as a leader to look at it. Yeah, you might be the principal and they might be the teacher, but they're people first. And so you have to, like you said, have that empathy and to be able to understand them and to help them through it. I also love that you said that you model the ability for them to say no, because teachers have a hard time with things like that, because teachers are their own worst critic, and they are almost always, most are very high in conscientiousness, so they want to be their best, they want to make the best everything. And like you said, you have to learn how to say no sometimes so that you can keep being your best. I think that's one of the reasons that they burn out.
Mhm. Oh, yeah, you have to be very cognizant of what you overwhelm your good people that are working so hard with. And those are the types of things that we 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 do that a lot because so many overachievers, and then they want more, and then they don't know where their threshold is. And so and we can't, and I'm as a leader, like, I don't necessarily want to say this is your threshold, because the next thing may be something that they really need to grow as a leader. But if they have to be the ones that say, okay, if I take that on, then can I get rid of this? But in my staff meetings or things like that, I'll purposely and intentionally say, so and so told me no. So is there anybody else that would be willing, or da 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 da, kind of having that conversation so that I can say that, like, you can say no to me. It's okay. And so then they're like, oh, okay, I'm out on that too. I'm not here for that. But those are the types of things that we make sure that we are very cognizant of what adds value to our staff, and then what takes time, and then just saying, okay, this is where we're at, and if we can get somebody, great. If we can't, then we work and we do what we got to do.
That was really powerful. What you said is to actually make that comment out loud for other teachers to hear,
Uh-huh.
because you may have 20 that told you no, but the rest don't know that. So to say that, and
Yeah,
for them to see that that person, that everybody's still alive, you're still alive, you're not mad, you haven't, beat anyone, that it's okay, and that you articulated, they told me no. And so, I've always said, like, think of like committees. I'd rather have one or two people on it that are very committed and want to do it than to force 30 people on it and it just be a nightmare. And so
yeah.
that's exactly the kind of, thinking that you're sharing with that right there.
I just think if you value people, you value their time. And so, and any investment of their time needs to be an investment in them. I mean,
Mm,
or the whole good, but and sometimes those work together, but at the end of the day, you want to make sure that everybody's time is valued.
right. Absolutely. And I like that addendum that you just put. It's not always going to benefit us personally, but if it benefits the whole group, that's part of that shared vision that we should have as a team. And that goes back to the team that you talked about as well.
Mhm.
I think that's one of the reasons that, like you said, is part of your leadership stemmed from understanding that with team, that sometimes team comes first. Now, it doesn't mean it always does, and that you should never grow in the process. Hopefully the two work together synergistically to you're developing better in the team. But I think that's a healthy mindset or balance to have there too. As you have moved through the levels, what is some advice maybe that you would give future leaders or maybe new leaders on, maybe something you experienced or just something you've learned or something that you've always, been part of your process that's helped you be successful? Is there anything you could share with them?
I think for any new leader, it's just very important that they find good mentors and people that have that are doing what they want to do, and then seeking out opportunities to learn more from them. And that's the one thing. Like, you have a job, and so, like, if you want more, understand it requires more. Right? You're going to have to invest more of your time and more of your energy and your thought process to, I mean, just like you got your doctorate, and those are the types of things that you have to put an investment into becoming better, for yourself, for whoever you want to lead, and so that you have earned essentially that right to lead people. And so those are the types of things that continuous growth is a must. And so if you're looking to lead, you need to find a strong mentor, and you need to seek opportunities to grow, and then and put in that work.
Oh, I don't think anyone said that before. And I really love that. And that really resonates with me because, you know, one of the things I share is, especially probably the last 10 or 15 years, I've mentored a lot of people. But I also, and it goes back to what you and I were talking about earlier with your children, I look to younger people now as almost mentoring me to
Mhm.
understand the next generation, their motivations, what they want, that type of thing. I think a good leader, like you said, is always learning. Even if you're at the top of your role, profession, or whatever, there's still that next step, and I think mentoring is so important, but especially along the way with the new ones, like you said, that's just invaluable. And it's funny because that's actually where I came up with this concept from, was because when I would mentor people, I would just actually meet them at a coffee shop. I didn't want to meet in an office, in their office, my office, or whatever. I'm like, let's go somewhere informal and just drink a cup of coffee and just you have someone there to vent to throw ideas off of, that's not judging you. And I think that's just a powerful connection to have with someone, like you said, especially as you're on the way up to that type of person lets you know, like you said, it's okay to fail. They've probably done it, and they probably failed 100 times, like we were talking about earlier, so that you
Yeah.
don't feel like it's just you and that no one's ever experienced that before.
Yeah, constant learning. I mean, every day I earn the right to lead, and that's my goal, is every day earning the right, and just continuously growing, and then pouring into others as they move up, because yes, and being vulnerable with them, to and not vulnerable in the as in you're not exuding confidence, but vulnerable in the situation where, you've made mistakes, and failure is allowable to continue to grow and rise up, and that's not going to stop you as long as you don't stop yourself.
Absolutely. And I like what you said too about helping others, bring them up too. You're working hard for your success and stuff, but if we think back, just like you were referring back to your coach, we can all not just think of people that influenced us, but people that really, helped us build our own leadership capacity. And so I
Mhm.
think that's so important to, like you said, help others along the way. Just like we talk about the teacher impacting lives forever, we do the same as in leadership too, at a
Oh,
different
absolutely.
level, but just as important, maybe even more important at times, because we're the ones that are, taking care of the teachers and the staff. So, that's certainly something that, I hope leaders remembers, to never stop mentoring, never stop helping others be their best, even if they're in leadership roles.
Yeah, and I've been blessed with some great mentors, so I can't even. There are so many that have invested and poured into me, that I mean, I just try to honor them daily by pouring into others.
Yeah. And we like to be honest, but I'm one, and some people say, I can't remember what the word some some lady said one time, but I try to be truthful, but in a nice way. But I'm like, but I've also learned as much from poor leaders as good leaders.
Oh yeah,
And, we don't like to mention that part sometimes, but it is true. And, we learn not what to do sometimes as well. So I think all those experiences help, develop who we are and what we become and how we choose to lead.
yeah, and you grow from that. Everything is a growth opportunity if you see it that way.
Yeah. All right. I have two questions. This one's the hardest one, of course. So because this is lattes and leaders, what is your hot beverage of choice? Coffee, cappuccino, latte, tea, nothing?
Oh, I'm such a coffee drinker. So I love me some coffee. I am a coffee with a little bit of half and half, and maybe a shot of hazelnut every now and then. But yes, that's my favorite.
Awesome. Mine too. I like it's called a chai latte. I do like it. I don't drink them very often, but yeah, just coffee with a little bit of creamer in it kind of gets me going. And I have to make a confession that I know they're horrible for us, but energy drinks is one of my one of my things to get me going too. But I figured that would be too convoluted to add that to as well. Is there any final word or thoughts you would like to share with either teachers or leaders or both?
You have to take care of yourself. And that's the one thing, is that you and your family are a priority, and you have to understand that. And when you can bring your best self to us, knowing that you've been your best self for your family, that to me is what I think is a successful school, because people are not coming in their this is their refuge sometimes, rather than the place that burns them out. And so that's my goal for a school system. And so if you are a leader, take time to yourself, communicate your needs when you need them, and work with your people to really just try to create that environment where people can do their best work. And that's the place that you will find success. And no matter if you have people that are just coming and burning the midnight oil, you might be good, but you're only going to be good for so long. So those are the types of things that we need to make sure that we are creating systems where people can be their best self.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, like sometimes we just kind of let it go. I know, especially in the past, and like you said, people may be burning the midnight oil, and they might be getting a lot done right now, but it's not sustainable. How do you? So you're at a level now where all eyes, I guess, are on you at times. So how do you model? We've talked a lot about what we model. How do you model that self care for you? How do you manage it?
Yeah, so I'm a big gratitude, and I model journal writing, and I talk to my people about that. Like, I do a gratitude and prayer journal, and I'm a big believer, and so that is one of those things that is something that I discuss very openly with my people about. That's my process. And I'm health conscious. I lost 82 pounds from when I was younger,
Wow.
and so it's kind of crazy. There's a whole story behind that, but I try to watch what I eat, and I try to exercise and take care of myself. But there is a season, like there's a seasons as leaders, like at the beginning of the school year right now, where everybody's doing
Right.
stuff that
Mhm.
they're probably, I can promise you, they're not taking care of themselves. I have to yell at my high school principal because he will not go home. He's up here just trying to get everything ready, and I'm like, go home to your family, go work out, go take care of yourself, because people who are just so good at giving to others, and want things to be just right, they're going to not take care of themselves. And so as a leader, you have to just say, put your foot down, you go home, turn off the email. And those are the types of things that I just try to model that for people, to be like, I know that you need that because you will not ask for that. And we have to be that with our people. And I'm like that with some of my friends who are leaders. I'm like, shut it off. Shut it off. And I have the ability to do that. We don't do a whole bunch of emails on weekends and things of that nature, because I feel like that is not sustainable.
Right. Oh, and I appreciate you sharing that because several leaders I've had on are like, "Oh, I'm the worst at it. I don't really do much or whatever." And it's like you said, I mean, when we talk about modeling stuff, that's one of the most important things that they should see from you is that, hey, you know, I understand how important health is, family time, that separation. Because, it's one of the things I always share. It's never going to get done.
Mhm.
Everything is never, especially with new teachers, I was like, you can work 24 hours a day, you're never going to get it done.
Yeah.
So, you have to learn to take care of yourself.
Like there's a season, like, you're as an administrator, when you're really trying to learn and grow, there's a season where you're going to have to work really hard. I Everybody gets that. There's a season as a new teacher that you're going to have to work really hard and get that. But you have to have some boundaries and have to have some barriers that you have to, even if you have to put it in your calendar, make it happen.
Absolutely. And then that's one of the things I'm like, especially share with new teachers, like you said, because we do understand the nature of the beast. And, you can't just clock out at 3 every day. It would be nice, but at least pick a couple of nights a week, like you said, on your calendar, mark them out and stick to it. And you'll see that, the world doesn't end when you do that. But I also love the reflections, the journaling and prayer time, things like that. I think that is so important too. My thing is at the end of the day, think about just one goal, just one thing that you were successful at? Because a lot of times I think we always focus on what we don't do or what we mess up, even as adults, that, we have to kind of change that mindset and think about, what was I successful at today? And then every day wake up with that attitude of gratitude. What are you
Yes.
grateful for that day? Because I'm a big believer how we start our day, that mindset, it can be,
Yeah.
thankful heart, like you're talking about, that gratitude, or you can be focused on, oh man, it's Monday, what, but
Mhm.
how we start our day affects what our day becomes. And so I think starting it off like you're talking about is just so important for not just surviving the day, but being your best in that day.
Oh, absolutely. It's all about mindset.
Well, thank you so much for being
Yeah.
on. I loved it. I love your story. I really love, like I said, when I see you post the sports stuff, because I think that's another whole level we don't talk a lot about, that how students in schools can be connected, not just with sports, but other extracurricular, whether it's band or music or,
And
you know,
black play.
I remember as a coach, I would always encourage my athletes to do other things, to be in drama, to try out for theater or whatever, just to have those experiences and see, if there's something else out there you like. But it just, it helps connect them to the school. And, and like you said too, it helps you build another layer with that teacher, that's your coach, or, that's heading the activity or whatever. It just builds that relationship even stronger and is even more influential on us. So thank you for sharing all that today.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
This has been Lattes and Leaders with Dr. Brad Johnson. We hope that you leave today feeling informed and inspired. For more educational content, be sure to add this podcast to your list and follow Dr. Johnson on any and all social media platforms. For more information on Dr. Johnson, Jeremy Johnson, and special guest, check out drbradjohnson.com. That is DOCTOR, bradjohnson.com. Hope to have you back soon.